What an impressive performance from Chelsea. Although they went into the match as favorites against Hull City at the MKM Stadium, the level of control they displayed throughout the game was outstanding. Chelsea dominated possession, dictated tempo, and limited Hull to very few clear openings, underlining how effective Liam Rosenior's tactical ideas are becoming. There were still minor shortcomings. Despite registering 3 assists, Liam Delap arguably should have added his name to the scoresheet. His overall contribution in link-up and chance creation was positive, but given his recent run of form, he will know that he needs to be more clinical in front of goal. Tactically, Liam Rosenior set his side up in a 4-2-3-1 system and handed Mamadou Sarr his first start for Chelsea. Sarr delivered a composed and disciplined performance, contributing to a clean sheet and showing maturity in his defensive positioning. On the other side, Sergej Džekirović opted for a 3-4-3 formation, looking to provide width through wingbacks while maintaining 3 central defenders to manage Chelsea's attacking structure. When Hull City were in possession, they largely maintained their 3-4-3 structure. The back 3 provided stability in the first phase, allowing them to circulate the ball with relative comfort, while the midfield 4 gave them a numerical 4 versus 3 advantage on paper against Chelsea's midfield trio. Hull were clearly aware of Chelsea's individual quality, so their strategy was less about sustained domination and more about provoking pressure before attacking the space left behind. By maintaining 4 players across midfield, they forced Chelsea to make a structural decision: either drop one of the attacking players deeper to match numbers centrally, or push a fullback higher to engage Hull's wide midfielder. For much of the match, Ryan Giles was the player who found himself with the most freedom. With Estevao committed to pressing Hull's back 3, Reece James often had to step forward to close down Giles. This movement, however, created a calculated risk. Whenever James advanced, Hull looked to exploit the space behind him. Their front 3 would then be positioned 3 versus 3 against Chelsea's back line, creating opportunities to play direct long balls or quick combinations into the channels to attack the exposed defensive space. From a structural standpoint, Sergej Džekirović's plan made sense. The overload in midfield could draw Chelsea out, and the immediate vertical pass into a 3 versus 3 scenario had the potential to be dangerous. However, execution was the limiting factor. Hull lacked the pace, precision, and technical sharpness in the final third to consistently capitalize on those moments. As a result, many of their transitions were either slowed down or comfortably dealt with by Chelsea's defensive line. Despite the theoretical advantages within the system, Chelsea's organization, recovery speed, and defensive discipline ensured that Hull's attacking sequences were largely contained. In Chelsea were in possession, their structure was far more complex than the nominal 4-2-3-1 suggested on paper. The transformation began in the very first phase of build-up. Jorrel Hato did not remain as a traditional left-back. Instead, he inverted into the left half space, stepping into midfield zones to support circulation and provide an interior passing option. This allowed Mamadou Sarr and Wesley Fofana to operate as the first line of build-up, effectively forming a back 2 during early progression. On the opposite side, Reece James stepped into midfield as well, but unlike Hato, he maintained a wider orientation. His positioning was key. He was high enough to connect with the midfield line, yet wide enough to stretch Hull's defensive block horizontally. Ahead of them, Pedro Neto, Estevao, and Alejandro Garnacho occupied narrow interior pockets behind the striker. The overall structure resembled a 2-3-4-1. 2 center-backs at the base, a midfield line of 3, Hato inside, James wide right, and 1 pivot central, and 4 advanced players positioned between Hull's midfield and defensive lines. At first glance, this shape appeared narrow and potentially predictable. However, that narrowness was deliberate. By overloading central corridors, Chelsea condensed Hull's defensive attention into tight spaces. This encouraged Hull to collapse inward, reducing vertical distances, but increasing the likelihood of being disorganized when players were dragged out of position. The key principle behind this design was movement-based destabilization. The advanced midfielders frequently dropped deeper or drifted wide to receive. When a Hull defender followed, gaps opened either in the half space or between center back and wing back. Chelsea then exploited these gaps through third-man combinations, quick wall passes, and diagonal runs beyond the defensive line. The narrow starting positions created the illusion of congestion, but the rotations generated dynamic space. In response, Hull City retreated into a compact 5-4-1 mid to low block. Their wingbacks dropped to form a back five, while the midfield four stayed horizontally compact to block central lanes. The primary objective was clear: deny access into the middle and force Chelsea wide, where crossing situations could be managed more easily. To break this structure, Chelsea introduced another positional adjustment. One of the double pivots, either Moisés Caicedo or Andrey Santos, dropped into the defensive line alongside Sarr and Fofana, temporarily creating a back three. This altered the geometry of the build-up. With three players at the base, Chelsea could stretch Hull's first line laterally, increasing passing angles and forcing Hull's front player to choose which side to press. When Hull shifted wide to engage, interior passing lanes opened. If they remained compact centrally, Chelsea had the time to circulate and switch play quickly. The back three also allowed the outer center back to step forward with the ball, committing a Hull midfielder and creating numerical superiority one line higher. As Chelsea progressed into the final third, their attacking patterns became more dynamic and combination-based. Much of their threat came from wide combinations, particularly through quick interchanges between the winger, the advancing fullback, and the nearest attacking midfielder. A central figure in these sequences was Liam Delap. Rather than operating purely as a penalty box striker, he frequently dropped slightly deeper to hold up play and link with runners around him. His ability to receive under pressure, shield the ball, and lay it off quickly allowed players like Pedro Neto, Estevão, Hato, and Alejandro Garnacho to attack space beyond the defensive line. If we assess his performance honestly, this was the area where he truly excelled. Despite not scoring, he registered 3 assists and was heavily involved in Chelsea's most fluid attacking moments. One notable example came from a quick central combination between Delap and Neto. Delap received with his back to goal, drew a defender toward him, and laid the ball into Neto's path. Neto then struck a powerful effort from outside the box, beating the Hull goalkeeper with precision and power. The sequence highlighted Chelsea's coordinated movements: striker dropping, winger narrowing, third-man run arriving at the right moment. Neto was outstanding throughout the match. Beyond his movement and link-up play, his finishing was clinical. He completed a hat-trick, including a goal scored directly from a corner, a technically difficult execution that demonstrated both confidence and technical quality. His performance was not only about goals, but about constant positional intelligence, finding pockets between Hull's defensive lines and attacking transitions with speed. However, despite the impressive victory, there remained structural concerns. Chelsea still showed moments of defensive vulnerability, particularly during transitions when their fullbacks had advanced and the midfield spacing became stretched. Against stronger opposition, those small imbalances could be punished more ruthlessly. Overall, the attacking structure was cohesive and efficient, but for sustained consistency, the defensive organization, especially in rest defense and transitional coverage, is an area that will require refinement.